Peppa lay on the top bunk of her bunk bed, listening to George tossing and turning below. His breathing was erratic, unusually heavy for a sleeping child. She tried to sleep, but the unease grew with every strange rustle from beneath her. Morning brought only more questions. At breakfast, George sat staring at his bowl of porridge, his gaze empty and detached. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig exchanged glances, their smiles gone, replaced by a slight anxiety. Peppa tried to talk to George, but he didn't answer, only shaking his head slightly. At the playground, George sat in the sandbox, his small hands mechanically sifting sand, but his eyes remained lifeless. He didn't respond to Peppa's calls, to her attempts to engage him in play. In the evening, as her parents discussed his strange behavior, George sat in the corner of the room, engrossed in drawing. Peppa came closer and saw that he was sketching strange, repetitive symbols on paper. Circles, triangles, squares. They were perfectly even, almost mechanical. Peppa's anxiety intensified. She tried to show the drawings to her parents, but they were too busy with their own affairs, dismissing her. The next day, Susie Sheep came to play. George sat next to her, but his eyes were empty, and he didn't participate in their games. Susie looked confused and a little scared. Peppa looked at George, and it seemed to her that he was looking directly at her, but without any expression, as if through her. Later, when Peppa tried to talk to Susie about George, she also seemed detached, her gaze as empty as George's. Peppa felt the world around her begin to change. At the playground, she saw that other children, Pedro Pony, Rebecca Rabbit, were also sitting with the same empty, detached stares. It was like a silent epidemic. Peppa walked home, feeling completely alone and frightened. The sky was overcast with grey clouds, and the house seemed alien. Entering the living room, she saw Mummy and Daddy sitting on the couch. They were watching television, but their eyes were as empty as George's and the other children's. Peppa tried to reach out to them, but they didn't respond. Their faces were lifeless masks. Peppa ran to her room. She sat on the floor, surrounded by George's drawings, which now seemed like ominous omens. The room plunged into darkness, and Peppa felt despair engulf her. She fell asleep, but sleep brought no relief. She dreamed of shadows in red. Lost episode of Peppa Pig that never aired. A sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's house, filling it with familiar laughter. Peppa and George played in their room, where a bunk bed stood against the wall, George on the bottom, Peppa on top. Mummy Pig cooked in the kitchen, and Daddy Pig read the newspaper in the living room. Everything was as usual, but a slight, almost imperceptible tension hung in the air. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Susie Sheep stood on the threshold, but her gaze was unusually blank and her movements stiff. She didn't smile as always, and didn't jump with joy. Suddenly, Spider-Man appeared on the roof of the house, his suit torn and dirty. He looked very tired and scared. Spider-Man slowly descended the wall, his movements uncertain. He peered into the window, his eyes full of anxiety. The pig family froze, watching him. No one understood what was happening. An ominous silence hung in the air. In the shadow of the trees behind the house, a dark, shapeless shadow flickered. It moved quickly and silently, approaching the house. The shadow was huge and menacing, its outlines resembling something terrible. It glided to the back door like a ghost. The pig family felt a chill down their spines. This was something very frightening. Daddy Pig, trying to be brave, slowly approached the door. His heart pounded in his chest. He carefully opened the door, peering outside. There was no one behind the door, only silence. Daddy Pig felt relief, but it was short-lived. Something was wrong. Suddenly, Venom burst from around the corner of the house, his black mass swaying. He was huge and terrifying, his eyes burning with an ominous fire. Venom let out a terrifying roar that made the windows rattle. He moved with incredible speed, heading towards the house. The pig family was terrified. Spider-Man, seeing Venom, tried to warn the pigs. He shouted, but his voice was weak and hoarse. He tried to break through to them, but his strength was failing. Venom was too fast. The pig family watched in horror. They were trapped. Venom burst into the house, his tentacles smashing furniture. He was unstoppable, his fury boundless. The pig family scattered in different directions, trying to hide. Venom pursued them, his roar filling the house. It was a true nightmare. Mummy Pig, trying to protect the children, grabbed a frying pan. She was full of determination, her eyes burning. She swung the frying pan, preparing for battle. Venom approached, his shadow looming over her. Mummy Pig was ready to fight. Suddenly, a chef emerged from the kitchen, his white hat askew. He was tall and thin, his eyes insane. In his hands, he held a huge cleaver from which blood dripped. The chef let out a terrifying laugh, his voice piercing. He looked very sinister. The chef, ignoring Venom, lunged at Spider-Man. His cleaver flashed in the air. Spider-Man tried to dodge, but was too weak. The chef was possessed, his movements fast and precise. It was a terrible sight. Venom, seeing the chef, froze for a moment, his black mass still. He was surprised. His eyes widened. The chef was an unexpected turn. Venom slowly retreated, his roar quieter. He did not expect such a turn of events. The Lost Peppa Pig episode that never aired. A sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's house, filling it with familiar laughter. Peppa and George played in their room, where a bunk bed stood against the wall. George below, Peppa above. Mummy Pig cooked in the kitchen, and Daddy Pig read the newspaper in the living room. Everything was as usual, but a slight, almost imperceptible tension hung in the air. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Susie Sheep stood on the doorstep, but her gaze was unusually empty, and her movements stiff. She didn't smile as always, nor did she jump with joy. Peppa, George, Mummy Pig, and Daddy Pig went for a picnic by the lake. The water was dark and still, reflecting the gloomy sky. They spread their blanket, but the air was heavy, foreshadowing something ominous. In the distance, an old, abandoned boat was visible, its outline appearing sinister. George pointed at the boat, his eyes filled with curiosity and fear. Peppa felt a chill, but curiosity prevailed. They approached closer. The boat creaked in the wind. Something stirred inside the boat, making strange sounds. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig felt uneasy. Suddenly, Spider-Man leaped out of the boat, his suit torn, his gaze full of terror. Venom followed him, his black mass pulsating, absorbing the light. Venom extended tentacles towards Peppa, her heart frozen with fear. Spider-Man stood in defense, but Venom was too strong. The boat began to sway, threatening to engulf everyone. The pig family rushed to flee, escaping the horror. They ran without looking back until the boat disappeared from sight. At home, they couldn't sleep for a long time, remembering the terrifying encounter. The lesson was learned. Not all adventures end well. George finds a strange book in Grandpa Pig's attic with mysterious symbols. At night, George reads spells from the book over his toy dinosaur. Lightning strikes the house, and electricity runs through the dinosaur toy. In the morning, George's dinosaur starts moving by itself, very slowly. Peppa notices that her brother's toy is looking at her with empty eyes. The dinosaur begins to grow and becomes the size of a real doll. Mummy Pig cooks breakfast, not noticing the living toy behind her back. Daddy Pig reads newspaper while the dinosaur quietly sneaks around the room. George tries to control his creation, but it doesn't obey his commands. The dinosaur starts eating other toys in George's nursery room completely. Peppa tries to tell parents, but they don't believe her strange words. At night, the dinosaur grows to the size of a real adult person. The family wakes up from strange sounds coming from the nursery room. The dinosaur goes to garden and starts digging holes with its claws. Neighbors see a huge shadow in the windows of the Pig family house. George realizes he has lost control over his dangerous magical experiment completely. The dinosaur starts calling other extinct creatures with its terrifying roar loudly. Peppa finds a way to stop the monster in the same spellbook. The family unites to return the dinosaur to toy state forever and ever. In the morning, everything returns to normal, but George remembers the lesson forever.